Alright, you can think of the temporomandibular joint like this. The socket is located on the head and the ball is on the lower jaw, right? That's why I say that temporomandibular joint disorder will definitely be accompanied by atlantoaxial joint disorder, because the socket moves along with the atlas vertebra. The socket moves with the atlas while the ball moves with the lower jaw. So after the atlas is misaligned and the head moves along with it, doesn't the socket also shift? Once the socket shifts, you definitely can't move smoothly inside it anymore. Therefore, as long as the atlantoaxial joint is misaligned, the temporomandibular joint will definitely be disordered. Conversely, when the temporomandibular joint is disordered, the atlantoaxial joint will also be misaligned. It's just a matter of which happens first. Because the movement of the head follows the atlas, and since the socket is located on the upper lateral mass of the atlas, once the atlas shifts, it takes the head with it. When the head moves, the socket changes as well. The front to back size of your two sockets becomes different, so you'll have problems when you open your mouth. Once your jaw shifts, what happens when you bite down on something? The alignment of your teeth follows a certain sequence, right? But once it's misaligned, the part that used to make contact later now makes contact first. As a result, when the back makes contact first, the front can't bite down properly. In order to make contact, your jaw will try to adjust itself, either moving forward to the opposite side or backward, to find a way to bite down. This improves alignment, but the teeth making first contact get damaged. As noted, that woman needed 4 crowns redone because those specific upper and lower teeth hit first, causing them to wear down. It's actually just that simple. So in this situation, when you're adjusting temporomandibular joint disorder, it's basically about either adjusting the socket, adjusting the condyle, or adjusting both the socket and the condyle together. That's all there is to it. Adjusting the socket is straightforward. It's done by following the atlas vertebra. There are only 2 things, atlas diagnosis and atlas relaxation. These are the 2 things I talked about on the first day. Adjusting the condyle is different though. The condyle can follow many things. It can move in the opposite direction of the atlas. It can move in the opposite direction of the hyoid bone, or it can follow the coccyx. So what does that mean? It's easier to adjust the socket than the condyle because there are only 2 sockets, but there are many condyles, and the condyle is movable. The rolling of the condyle represents uncertainty and flexibility. In fact, you can think of the jaw as a golf ball and the socket of the temporomandibular joint as the hole that the golf ball goes into. The hole doesn't move, but the ball moves everywhere. That's what the temporomandibular joint is like. I'm explaining this for the general audience, so don't think of it as something overly complicated. In short, there are 3 possibilities. The socket moves, the condyle moves, or both move. If the socket moves, it's more active. These involve ring diagnosis and ring transmission. Other issues involve the condyle. Note that TMJ disorders further imbalance the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. How to understand this? Do you remember when people clench their teeth when they're nervous? You use force when eating, right? So whenever you clench your teeth, it means that at this moment, you need to hold your breath. It means you're either getting ready to lift something heavy or you're preparing to fight someone, getting ready for battle. That's when you clench your teeth. So why does temporomandibular joint disorder definitely lead to autonomic nervous system disorder? Think about it. This is the right brain. This is the left brain. If the jaw shifts to one side, when the mouth is closed, the teeth on one side are clenched while the other side is relaxed. Clenching your teeth indicates tension. If you're not in battle mode, it means you're relaxed. But if one side is fighting and the other side is relaxed, who should I listen to? Do you understand? That's why their mind isn't functioning well. They're happy one moment, sad the next. And then sometimes this part hurts, sometimes that part hurts. Because as soon as you grit your teeth and enter battle mode, what does that mean? It means all the muscles in your body need to tense up, right? If I'm going to fight someone, of course, all my muscles have to tense up. So the side where you're gritting your teeth sends a message to the brain that you're entering battle mode. And the brain sends out the command for the whole body to tense up. But on the other side, where you're not clenching, it means you're resting, and those muscles need to relax. So who should I listen to? So this is called autonomic nervous system disorder. Many people with severe somatization also have temporomandibular joint disorders. Why is it more common in elderly people? When they're middle-aged, they're still full of fighting spirit, but as they get older, you'll notice they start to have more issues. By the time they're 50 or 60, and then even older by 80 or 90, there's not much movement or reaction anymore. That's because by the time you're over 90, you don't have any teeth left, and without teeth, you can't enter battle mode anymore. So their whole body remains soft and relaxed. So just remember, whenever you clench your teeth, it means you're either ready to fight. Either you're exerting force under high pressure or feeling hatred. In all these situations, you clench your teeth. Whenever you clench your teeth, your sympathetic nervous system becomes excited, and the side where you clench your teeth gets stimulated, while the side where you don't clench remains relaxed. As a result, your brain doesn't know which side's feedback it should listen to. This is temporomandibular joint disorder. That's why I say the more disordered a person's temporomandibular joint is, the more dysregulated their intellectual nerves are. Such people are quite difficult to get along with because their moods are unpredictable and out of control. You never know what might upset them. What you say may be unintentional, but they take it to heart. The things they care about are always different from what you care about. This is typical of people with temporomandibular joint disorder. So for those whose jaws click on both sides, their personalities tend to be rather odd. It's actually not their fault. It's because the input information from both sides is inconsistent. So, sometimes the brain sends out information based on the bite from one side, and sometimes it sends out commands based on the input from the other side. As a result, the instructions sent by the brain become inaccurate because the proprioceptive feedback from both sides is different. Just think about it. If you're always biting on this side, then the function of the internal organs on this side will be affected. During a fight, your blood definitely needs to rush to your muscles, right? When you're fighting, doesn't your blood need to flow into your muscles? My muscles need to be filled with blood to be strong. So, as long as you remain in a constant state of combat, the blood supply to your internal organs will be affected, and your organs will become ischemic. That's why our nervous system is designed in a very interesting way. The vast majority of our internal organs are innervated by the vagus nerve. What does the vagus nerve do? It helps you relax. So, when you are relaxed, blood can flow into your digestive tract and internal organs because relaxation means your muscles don't need as much blood. At this time, the blood from the muscles is allowed to flow back to the internal organs, which improves their function. But if you are constantly clenching your teeth, always in a state of battle, never letting go, it means you are always directing blood to your muscles. In that case, your internal organs will definitely have problems. They become ischemic, and ischemia also means a lack of oxygen. At this point, you need to make adjustments, whether it's through acupuncture or other means. When you do massage or acupressure, if the person's teeth are still clenched, their brain is still receiving the input signal of clenching. In this case, you can only help them relax temporarily. So this is the underlying logic between these factors. This is how temporomandibular joint disorder affects your emotions, your internal organ function, and your joint mobility. So don't underestimate it. If your jaw is acting up, that's just a symptom. If your car is driving down the road and keeps bouncing and shaking, would you still dare to drive it? Of course not. You would definitely want to check what the problem is. So, the clicking of the temporomandibular joint is like a fire alarm in our room. When there's smoke here, the alarm goes off over there. It's actually sounding the alarm for you, telling you to pay attention to what's going on. It's just that issues with your internal organs or emotions are using this sound to remind the owner. Whether it's pain in our body, noises, or even fluid buildup, these are all reminders. All of these are our body's self-protection mechanism. It's defense. Joint fluid means the knee is unstable. When bone spurs bridge, your spine lacks stability through strength alone. I create growths, connecting bridges to trade flexibility for stability. That popping sound is a reminder. A clicking hip joint signals a problem. This means the coronal and sagittal plane kings have issues. Then, when your temporal lobe and joint make popping sounds, it's telling you that your temporomandibular joint or atlantoaxial joint has a problem. So, it's using the sound to alert its owner. It's not for any other reason. If you don't get a thorough examination and just keep pressing or poking at the spot that hurts, it's like smashing your fire alarm when it goes off in your house. It won't make noise anymore and won't bother you, but eventually, your entire building will slowly be destroyed. The fire will keep getting bigger and bigger, burning more and more intensely. You might end up losing everything. That's the logical relationship between these things. So you'll notice that when someone has a problem with their temporomandibular joint, it means that the input information your brain is constantly receiving is one side is fighting while the other side is resting. One side fights, the other rests. This means that one side of your internal organs is experiencing ischemia, while the other side... Fortunately, your intestines include the ascending colon, transverse colon, and descending colon, so both the left and right sides are involved. If there's a problem on one side but not the other, how is your body supposed to function properly? That's why most people nowadays have issues with bowel movements and also with sleep. Sleep is actually a problem related to autonomic nervous system regulation. Emotional management is also an issue. Many parents say their children have problems managing their emotions. Of course they do. Their feet aren't right. The big scallop isn't right. The small scallop isn't right. How could anything be right? So this is how it is. You'll have a better understanding of how the human body operates because the brain makes decisions based on the information it receives before producing any output. If the information you input is incomplete, or if the right side is inputting one thing and the left side is inputting something else, which side is the brain supposed to listen to, the left or the right?